Thank you, everybody, for joining this important discussion today. This is a joint effort from the New York City Department for the Aging, the New York City Police Department, and the New York City Commission on Human Rights. So glad to be working in collaboration together for this very important discussion, which is really focused on crime prevention and how we could support the safety and well-being of older adults. In case you're not familiar with us, I am Jocelyn Groden, Associate Commissioner from the New York City Department for the Aging. We at DFTA represent the largest area agency on aging in the country and support New York City's older adult population through a variety of programs and services and supports. The purpose of today's webinar is to help keep you safe by providing suggestions on how to stay safe on the street, online, and to avoid becoming a victim of scams, fraud, and other crimes. You'll be provided throughout this discussion and webinar with do's and don'ts that support your safety in your daily lives and have an opportunity to ask questions at the end of the session. Just a little housekeeping item. We ask if you could type your questions in the chat. We will work to resolve them and address them at the end of the session. We're so excited to be here today with NYPD's Community Outreach Division, and in particular, Morales, who is a wonderful presenter, who's been really committed to the older adult population for many years. Really excited to hear from him. We're also joined by the New York City Commission on Human Rights, and we will wrap up with a brief overview about who is the Department for the Aging, talk about some of our many services and supports, and talk about how to access crime victim services should you need them. We're so appreciative to have you here today with us on this Zoom for this really important discussion. Please ask any questions you have in the chat and we'll get to them as soon as possible. Thank you again, and look forward to hearing from all of you and learning together. So without further ado, I'd like to present our first speaker, Sergeant Raymond Morales.
Good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Sergeant Morales, Ray Morales. Ray is fine. I'm here joined with Officer Kwok. So very lucky in that respect. Officer Kwok has a lot to add. He's got a lot of experience. And I'm sure that between the two of us, hopefully everyone can walk away from this Zoom feeling better protected. And that's exactly, what we do. I'm with the police department. Just a little background. I'm with the police department. I'm in my 25th year, and a lot has changed in the time I started to the point that we're at right now. We're at the cusp of a lot of change, and I think change is good. But what we're tasked with doing here at the Community Outreach Division, Crime Prevention Division, whatever you want to call it, is raise awareness. And that's exactly what we do. We do that with public awareness campaigns. Typically, if it wasn't in this day and age of Zoom, we'd be out boots on the ground, so to speak. We'd be out visiting the senior centers. We'd be out on the street corners. We'd be out at the malls. We welcome any new opportunity to outreach to people, but because of the pandemic, here we are, we're at a Zoom meeting, but thank God for that. So it still allows us to do the good work that we feel that we need to do. Again, in my 25 years, I think the things that really hit close home to me are crimes against children and crimes against the elderly, because you're talking about two separate groups of people that may or may not be able to actually defend themselves or speak up for themselves. So as a parent, anything involving a child really affects me, but the adults too, because in my unit, I have the luxury of reading a lot of crime reports, and for the entire city. It's not just one particular precinct or one particular borough. And as such, when we do that and we read the details that are not on the report are what's more concerning to me. Oftentimes cops are, they're taking a report, they may not ask the question that I would ask, or they may not ask a more pointed question. But when you get down to the nitty gritty of it all, that's what basically allows us to help you is getting to those details. And believe you me, there are plenty of details out there. And I know that we are all savvy New Yorkers. I'm Brooklyn, born and raised. I still reside in this great city. I love it to death. And I know, coming from New York City, having traveled elsewhere, when you come from New York, you come with a certain panache, I guess, for lack of a better word. And people, we're New York strong. And I know that being New York strong, not many things really affect us. I mean, look at us all now. We're over a year into this pandemic and we've adapted. But nonetheless, when you read these reports, it's really crazy to me as savvy New Yorkers, the stuff that people fall for. And we'll get into that a little bit later. So I'm going to have Officer Clark assist me. We have what we call this crime prevention book, and it was designed for seniors, for the senior community. It's designed with crimes that we recognize or identify that are affecting the senior community. So what I'd like to do is just go over that page by page. I know our time is limited. We're going to have a Q&A at the end, I believe. So with that in mind, I'm going to have Officer Clark. I have to share the screen, right?
Yeah, just a minute, everyone. Working through some technical issues first. Great, thank you.
That's totally fine. Officer Morales, do you mind if I go first? Not at all. I think he's saying no. Okay.
Please go right ahead. I apologize. Please go
Sure,
right
Not
ahead.
a problem.
Thank you.
Not a problem. Good morning, everyone. I am
Sure.
delighted to be here this morning. And I'm Doreen Bermudez from the New York City Commission on Human Rights. I'm going to be sharing my screen in the next few minutes. But I first and foremost wanted to thank the Department for the Aging for the invitation, and for NYPD to work collaboratively with us on this presentation this morning. And I also will put many resources on the chat for those of you that would like to contact us later as you receive the information this morning. The New York City Commission on Human Rights is a New York City agency here in which is charged with the enforcement of the human rights law. We have one of the most inclusive and comprehensive human rights law in the United States. We are charged and divided into two major bureaus. That is the Law Enforcement Bureau, and that is also the Community Relations Bureau, where I live. And we are the public education unit of the commission. We are the people that go into the senior centers, into the library, into the public accommodations, and talk to everyone about their human rights. We cultivate the understanding among all the city residents in terms of what are their rights and where we have jurisdiction. Jurisdiction simply means where we are able to go and apply the law. Also at the commission, we utilize restorative justice principles to address harm that is caused by discrimination, either in housing, in a public accommodation, in the place of employment. What I'm going to share today is a very short presentation. And I first want to say that all of these presentations, these workshops and trainings are available to you. And all you have to do is go into our website and make a request if you work for an organization that would like to get their providers, the staff trained. And if you are just one, a person that would like to learn more, we do have information in 26 different languages in which you are able to come and find information. How can first you get involved and how you can seek this information. I'm going to share my screen now for a very short presentation. And again, this presentation is also not to be taken as legal advice. This is just information. And if you need legal advice, then you should seek legal advice, either via the Commission on Human Rights if you feel that you have been a victim of discrimination. Again, and I'm just going to go through this very quickly just for the sake of our time. So we are divided into four pillars: the Legal Enforcement Bureau, where we conduct all of our litigation and investigations and decisions; the Community Relations Bureau; the Office of Mediation and Conflict Resolution. And this is an important unit at the commission. And it's because it's the unit that seeks for understanding and communication in a way to mediate in order to avoid litigation and really to bring a resolution to any conflict. And then the office of the chair and policy, where our chair and commissioner sits and then makes the decisions. We are one of the most comprehensive laws, as I said, in terms of human rights. We prohibit discrimination in the areas of employment, public accommodation, housing, discriminatory harassment, bias-based profiling by law enforcement, and we have zero tolerance for retaliation. Here are some of our all of our protected classes under the New York City Human Rights Law. And we will not concentrate on all of them today, but we will highlight some of them. And I'd like to start with age. Age is a protected class under the New York City Human Rights Law where you cannot be discriminated against because of your age, because of your color, because of your race, because of your immigration or citizenship status. And that also implicates your perceived immigration or citizenship status, which means that no one can assume and discriminate against you because of your immigration or citizenship status. You cannot be discriminated in New York City because of your gender, your national origin, your religion, your sexual orientation, and all of the others that are listed here. In addition to that, we have protections in bias-based profiling by law enforcement based on housing status. We also provide protections in employment based on arrest on conviction record, caregiving status, your credit history, your salary history. No one could discriminate against you because you are a victim of domestic violence or because you have been unemployed for a while. In addition to that, we also have additional protections in housing based on lawful source of income, on lawful occupation, if you are a status of a domestic, a victim of domestic violence, or there's a presence of children. So for example, a landlord cannot discriminate against you in the place of housing and not rent you a unit because you have children. Currently, right now, we are responding to all of the incidents that are happening in terms of discrimination and bias incidents in New York City. So far, we have reached over 6,500 people in this fiscal year by hosting bystander interventions in different languages. In English, like this morning, in Chinese and Korean. We are currently also working in translating this training in Spanish. We also have this training available to the youth. We have convened virtual trainings and gatherings towards healing circles for Asian Pacific Islander New Yorkers, given all the discrimination and bias that is currently happening. Just to give you an example of the work that we are doing, we have a public artist in residence who created I Still Believe in Our City, an ad campaign that most of you probably have seen all around New York City, in which targets Asian American Pacific Islander individuals, letting others know that they also believe in the city and that did not make anyone sick, that what we are living right now currently in our city and in the world is not a fault of AAPI communities. What is discriminatory harassment, and what does that, how do we define that, and how do we make you aware if you are a victim? Discriminatory harassment is the threat, intimidation, harassment, violence against someone that is interfering, first of all, with their constitutional rights, and is also being attacked because of a protected status. So I'm going to give you an example. If I'm being discriminated against, if I'm being threatened against because of my age, because I am an older adult, that means that I am being discriminated and harassed because of a protected status in New York City. And I'm going to talk about what evidence do we need? How can someone be liable about this? Can hateful graffiti be part of discriminatory harassment? And how do I report? And what types of measure can the commission take against the perpetrator? Something that I think our Officer Morales will agree with, that in New York City, your immigration status doesn't matter. You should report regardless of your immigration status. We have the COVID-19 response team. And recently, we want to share the data because it is important that you see the numbers. The numbers are an indication that people are coming forward. But we also do know that there are more cases happening. And if you take anything from what I'm saying this morning, I really want to encourage you that if you see something happening, that you come forward and you report. And that your immigration status, if you speak another language, should not be a barrier for you to not report. In New York City, we have currently 625 COVID-19 related bias incidents. 205 are anti-Asian related incidents. Anti-Asian related incidents last 2 years ago, at the same time, were 30. So we know there's an indication that the incidents have gone up because of all of the um, anti-Asian bias incident related to the COVID-19 virus. What are some of the type of discrimination cases that we are seeing? We are seeing them in employment. We are seeing them in the place of housing where you live, in public accommodation. What is a public accommodation? A public accommodation is where you go to seek a service. So for example, a hospital is a public accommodation. Your favorite restaurant is a public accommodation. Where you buy your groceries is a public accommodation. Also, when you are transporting, when you are using public transportation in New York City, that is considered a public accommodation. And we are also seeing discriminatory harassment in all of these areas. Before taking any action, as you go into the world, right? And we are seeing all of these things happen. One of the first things that we encourage people is, if you are a bystander and you want to be able to respond to what's happening, the first thing, and again, I think Officer Morales will also agree with this, is that you have to make sure that it's safe for you. We don't want you to take action in anything that is going to put you at risk. And there are strategies that may work best in different situations. And I'm going to go through this very quickly because, again, this is a 3-hour training and we only have about 10 minutes. And I know I'm running out of time, but what can you do if you are a bystander, upstander, and you are seeing an act of discrimination, of harassment? And I want to concentrate on 2 of this. We have delegate, distract, delay, document, or direct. And distract is an alternative. So I'm going to give you a quick example of this. For example, about 1.5 years ago, I experienced an incident in the New York City subway where someone was getting very loud with someone else. And I immediately knew that this was discriminatory harassment, which is illegal in New York City. And I didn't have the means, right, to intervene. I have to think about my safety. And what I did was I leaned over where the discussion was happening and I asked the person, oh, can you please excuse me for a moment here? I need to take a look at the subway map. For me, that felt safe. It's very possible that for other people that may not feel safe. And again, I want to emphasize that you have to make that decision and put your safety first. And that worked for me. That doesn't mean that that's going to work for everyone. And I was able to distract and I was able to say, oh, I'm trying to get here Would you be able to help me, to the person that was yelling at the other person? And I was able to distract for a few minutes. And in the next stop, the person got off the train. And by the time that I was done asking for directions, the person that was yelling at the other person didn't have anyone there because the person left. That doesn't work all the time. And I acknowledge that. Again, I want to emphasize your safety. Distraction is a very good strategy. Documenting, all of us right now, and most of us, not all the time, not able to use technology, but most of us carry a phone and sometimes recording, taking pictures in a way that does not put you or the other person in danger. Um, Documenting, seeking help, going to calling the police always. They are trained and they will come and they know what to do. Obtaining as much as information as you can, the time where this happened, taking a look at the person, being able to document, even if you're not writing, as you should, but documenting in a way that you could relay this information either to NYPD or to the entity that you're reporting this. It's very difficult to think about all of these things when you are in the situation. And again, I want to go back to being aware of your surroundings and your safety. How do you contact us? And how do you come to the commission if you feel, if you are, or you know someone that has been a victim of discrimination? You could contact us directly at 212-416-0197. Again, that number is 212-416-0197. Or you could call 311 and ask to be connected to the Commission on Human Rights. At the Commission, we speak 26 languages. And under executive order, we are mandated to provide services in the language that you speak and that you feel more comfortable with. I know there's a lot of information that I didn't give you this morning. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put many resources on the chat. I'm also going to put my email and my contact information. And if there's anything that you want to either call me or email me and ask me, I will be more than happy to answer your questions and your emails. I'm going to pass it back to my colleagues at the Department for the Aging. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation, and thank you, Doreen, for your flexibility. So appreciate the work that Human Rights is doing, particularly right now, so relevant and important. And maybe we'll talk a little bit at the end around some of the webinars we're going to be doing in Korean and Mandarin to really support the Asian American Pacific Islander community. So thank you for your patience. Sergeant Morales, we hear that your tech is working very well. So with that, NYPD.
Thank you, Doreen, for jumping in. I really appreciate it. And thank you, everyone, for your patience. I am very tech challenged, as everyone could tell. My apologies for that. But luckily for me, I have Officer Kwok here, and he showed me the way. So let's hope this works now. Okay, so we're going to share screen, right? Okay. All right.
Go to the crime prevention.
There we go.
And then hit share.
All right, here we go. Everyone, as I said, we're all savvy New Yorkers. Click on what?
Just click on the screen. You control M. So
here we go. This is the book that I had mentioned earlier. It's called the Crime Prevention Book for Seniors, and it's pretty much basic tips. And I know as seasoned New Yorkers, we don't need to be reminded of common sense stuff. But guess what? As seasoned New Yorkers, we need to be reminded of common sense stuff because we are so laser focused with our mission at hand. We forget the common sense stuff, the stuff that we can do to protect ourselves. In the crime prevention world, in the law enforcement world, in order for a crime to happen, we have identified 3 elements that must exist for a crime to happen. And we developed this little acronym for it. The police department loves acronyms. I don't know what it is, but they love it. This particular acronym is called DOA. And this is usually when I have the audience try to guess what it is, but that's kind of difficult to do in a Zoom. But the D stands for the desire. Okay, that's the D part of it. So if a bad guy or girl wants to commit a crime, first and foremost, they have to have the desire to do so. I'm going to jump over to the A. The A is the ability to commit the crime. They have to be physically able to commit that crime. Now, again, the O is what everyone on this Zoom call has control. We have an awesome power to stop crime in its entirety. Everyone on this Zoom call, everyone that lives in the city possesses the power to affect the O in the equation, and the O is the opportunity. I submit to everyone here, if we remove the opportunity from that equation, guess what? The crime cannot occur. And that goes from the low-level crimes to the high-level crimes. It's all about the opportunity. And being a seasoned New Yorker, guess what? I walk around my day, especially in my world and my experience, and sometimes I have to be honest with you, I give people the opportunity, and that's only because, guess what? We're laser focused. We have to pick up our grandkids. We have to go to the market. We have to go to church. We have to run errands. And in doing all that, we get into our routine and we get tunnel vision. So just keep that in mind. If the one takeaway that I want people to have after we go through this book, and I'm going to go through it very briefly because a lot of it is redundant and that's done on purpose. But the one takeaway I want everyone, actually there's two. The one takeaway, I want everyone to trust their instincts, okay? We've all heard the cliche, the hair on the back of my neck. I knew something was up. Now, again, if I were with you personally, I would ask everyone to raise your hand. How many times have you felt that feeling that the hair in the back of my neck was up? And I would ask people to keep your hand up if that feeling proved itself to be true. And guess what? I'd say a good 85% of the people in the room would have their hands still up, because it's about trusting your instincts. We all know our own neighborhoods. We all know our own block. We all know when something is not right, when something is askew, and your instincts is telling you, hey, something's up. You know, maybe I should extract myself from this situation. So again, that's the DOA, desire, opportunity, and ability. If we remove the opportunity, and how do we remove the opportunity, everyone? We remove the opportunity by making a plan. Okay, I know it sounds pretty heavy to make a plan to walk out our own doors, but guess what? When we have a plan and we do things the right way, we remove the opportunity and we will not be victimized. So this is the book. We're going to go over it page by page. Basic safety tips. What can I do? Traveling while out walking, try to do so in groups and in well-lit areas. Pretty basic, but do we do it all the time? Absolutely not. Try to stay on main streets with other pedestrians around you. I know we're seniors, but if we could somehow network and do things with other people, go to the market with other people instead of going alone, do things in groups with a friend, a close friend, an acquaintance from the senior center. Do it together, okay? To start a conversation, start a friendship. When walking, if someone attempts to snatch your pocketbook, let go of it. It can be replaced. Now, I don't have a purse, but I do have this bag. And what we try to tell people is when you carry the bag, what we want you to do, see these latches? We don't want this. We don't want any of that. We want you to take the bag and place it underneath your arm as if you're holding a football. Why? If someone were to come to grab that bag and it's wrapped around your neck, wrapped around your shoulder, guess what's going to happen? Guess what's going to go down with the bag? You're going to go down with it. You're going to fall and possibly create an even more severe situation, maybe with a broken bone, a broken arm. We don't want that. I promise you one thing, everything in that bag, guess what? It can be replaced. And you shouldn't be walking around with everything in your bag, and we'll get to that a little bit later. So that's how you walk with your bag. Just keep it tucked under your arm like a football. If someone wants it, let it go. We don't need to hold on to it. Everything can be replaced. Transportation. When you're driven home, ask the driver to wait until you are safely inside your residence. I used to do that when I was a kid. My mom used to send me over to my grandmother's in car service, and the car service driver was tasked in making sure that I got in that door. You can ask the same of your Uber driver or your taxi driver. Do what you can to be seen, okay? As dusk and dawn, the sun's coming up and coming down, it's very difficult for people to see people, especially when they're walking at crosswalks. So what do we have? We have a reflective tape to walkers and motorized scooters. Doing so will increase your visibility to drivers as you use crosswalks. Well, guess what? Everyone here lives in a particular precinct. Guess what every precinct has? Every precinct has a crime prevention officer that can affix this tape to your walkers or your motorized scooters for you free of charge. Okay, so you can reach out to your local precinct CPO. There was a day when we come out to the senior centers and we would do it on site, but because of COVID, we can't do that. But you can contact your crime prevention officer and they can do that for you. Also with the bag that I just held up before, you may want to get yourself a bag that has a reflective strip on it, okay? That'll definitely add to your visibility as you're walking in crosswalks and walking in and crossing streets. Shopping, if someone bumps into you while you're shopping or walking in a crowd, be aware that this action might be related to a pickpocket. We all know that, but also be advised that they work in teams. So Officer Kwok and I could be totally distant from each other, but he'll be the one that bumps you and engage you in conversation, and I'll be the one that's behind you going through your pocketbook. So be aware that they create distractions. Medical information, always carry identification and have a list of your medication with doctor's contact information with you at all times. Now, why do we want to do that? In case of a medical emergency, we want to know, we want to be able as first responders to tell the EMS driver if you're allergic to any medication. We want to have contact information for someone, a loved one that we can reach out to and let them know that you're having a medical situation and they may want to come down and be with you. Okay, it's important. You can also leave that list in your own home on the refrigerator in case EMS has to respond to your house. It's a list there and you're not trying to look for this list during a panic situation. It's already out there and it's readily accessible for everyone there. As you're approaching your house, have your keys in hand. Have your keys in hand as you approach your home. This will allow you to unlock the door without delay. Nothing worse than walking up to your door. Maybe the light's not working as well as it should. It's not as bright. And now you're fumbling for your keys. Again, remove the opportunity. Plan ahead of time. If you know you're a block away, take your keys out, ready to go. This way, when you get to the door, the key goes right in and you're good to go. This last icon says report it. Immediately report a theft or any suspicious activity to the NYPD by calling 911. We do not work in silos. We need the public's help, their partnership with the community. As the mayor and the police commissioner always say, public safety is a shared responsibility. Please don't assume that the police department knows exactly what's going on all the time. You live on your block. You know better than I do. You know better than the guy that works in that precinct what time Mr. and Mrs. Jones come out every day, what time they arrive home, what time the garbage truck come, who's double parking their car. We all know that, and you all know who those people are. So we rely on you to report that information to us so we can take appropriate action.
Yes, I just want to jump in on two real quick things. One, at this point in time, in addition to wanting the visibility at night, we do also want to suggest that if you can run your errands while it's still light out, it's always helpful. As it gets darker, it increases that possibility that something could potentially happen, because both the criminals are looking for that opportunity, but also drivers being distracted later on at night when they're driving also reduces that visibility. So if you're running your errands and your mobility is an issue, definitely try to do it a little bit earlier, because it definitely helps to again mitigate that opportunity for something to happen to you. And then the other thing that, and this is a huge part, as Sergeant Morales put it best, this safety is something that we share, but also it's something that we don't always realize the extent of what we do. Sometimes we don't understand that by calling the police for something that didn't seem like it might seem harmless, or maybe even to you, like, it's something that I see, it's not a big deal, but that sometimes turns into a big deal. So that person may not at the time been looking to do anything, but because of the fact that no one bothered to call the police, and he just feels safe, that criminal feels safe in that environment because the police aren't there to do anything, because no one bothered to call on them. Then a couple of days later, he's like, oh, okay, good, I have the opportunity, let me jump in and I'm going to start doing stuff. So you never know the how far making that call to let us know. Nothing is too small. We could just show up, we'll take a look. Once we take a look, and that person sees, oh, there's police officers that come down this block. Now they're like, okay, maybe I shouldn't do anything down here. And that removes that opportunity. I just want to add that. That's a very, very good point with leading into deception burglaries. I said earlier that I wanted everyone to have two takeaways here, and I only mentioned the one, and the one was to trust your instincts.
And the other one, believe it or not, is that I want everyone on this call to be just a little bit rude at times. Okay, you heard it here first. Sergeant Morales said it's okay to be rude, and that's going to come into play a lot because I know we're very good-hearted, loving people, and it's counterintuitive for us to be rude. But in order to protect yourself, I want you to take these steps to be a little bit rude and protect yourself, which leads into deception burglary. The deception burglary is just that, someone knocking on your door. How many people here on this call have construction going on their block? I would say 50% of the people's hands are raised because we live in New York City. There's construction happening everywhere, all hours of the night. Some bad guys and girls use that as an opportunity to gain entry into your house. So a deception burgs is criminals often target seniors. They impersonate roofers, plumbers, electrical contractors. And a common ploy that they use is they'll knock on your door and say, a pipe is broken down the block and we have to check the water. We have to make sure that your basement is okay. Once they're inside, they distract the victim. Again, they work in teams. Oftentimes they work in teams. They may not necessarily work in teams, but they do. Officer Kwok will knock on the door. He's contractor Kwok now. He has to check your basement. He's going to engage you in conversation and distract you. And guess what? I'm going to come in your front door that you left unlocked, and I'm going to go either to the basement or up the stairs, and I'm going to go through all your items. So what can you do? If anyone knocks on your door that you're not expecting, this is where the rude part comes in. Answer the door from behind a locked door. There's no urgency for you to open that door and have a conversation with anyone that you're not expecting. Okay, a little rude, it's okay. You're doing so to protect yourself. Okay, have that conversation from behind a locked door. Never open the door for someone that you're not expecting. Even if you are expecting, let's confirm who they are. Okay, even if they say they're police, guess what? Do police officers work in plain clothes? Absolutely. Now, how do you know they're police officers? Like, what are they going to show you? They're going to show you a shield. Do you have your shield on you?
Oh, no, I don't. I got this one.
They're going to show you the shield, right? And you're going to wear this uniform. Guess what? People can buy this uniform online. Okay, they could buy the metal shields, the badges. People call them badges online. What you really need to see and ask for and look for is our identification card. I'm going to show you what one looks like. This way, you know what this is what an NYPD ID card looks like. And you're totally within your rights to ask that officer to see their ID card. Okay, we have to have this on our person at all times, whether we're in uniform or we're in plain clothes. Okay, so you keep your doors locked. We went through that. Do not let anyone in you're not expecting. You can tell them, a good ploy is tell them that you're expecting a family member or a neighbor to be stopping by very soon. And guess what? Guess what else you could do? You can call us, call 911. As Officer Kwok said earlier, it may not seem like a big deal. It's just someone knocking on your door. But if you call 911 and you tell that person, and it is a bad person, guess what they're going to do? They're going to leave. If you don't call 911, they're going to try to do the same to your neighbor, and you don't want that to happen. Okay, so again, on the surface, it doesn't seem like there's anything really bad happening. But if you just say, I'm going to call 911, if you don't feel safe, guess what? You can call us, and we will come and verify that person's ID. And if they are legitimate, they're going to hang around and wait to be verified. Again, request ID. Utility workers need to gain access to your residence to read the meter sometimes. Request to see their photo identification through the peephole. But even with that, if you're not sure and you're not expecting them, I would not use the ID as a green light to let them in. Still call 911 and let us determine if they're the real deal or not. We have a list of phone numbers in this book we're working with everyone on the Zoom to get this book out to everybody. But there's a list of phone calls for all the utility companies, Con Ed, National Grid, DEP, PSE&G, with an 800 number that you can call to verify to see if this person at your doors is in fact a utility worker. And again, the icon that you're going to see throughout this book is reported. Please don't be shy about calling 911. That's what we're there to help and protect you. Mail theft, what can I do? Again, another part, usually if we're in person, I'd ask people, usually the senior community still mails mail. You get your pension check or whatever check you're expecting at the end of the month. And guess what? We're writing on our bills. We're very, very studious about that. We're creatures of habit. We get our pension check on the 1st or the 5th and we're writing on our bills. And guess what? We write our bills on a check and we bring them to the same mailbox. We don't want you to go to a mailbox. We want you to go to the post office if you can. Okay, deposit your mail directly at the post office while it's open, inside, not the post office box that's outside. Take your mail inside. And if you can't get to the post office for any reason and you still have to use a post office box in your corner, drop your mail prior to the pickup. If you pull the lid, or if some of them don't have lids now, but they have a sticker and tells you when they're coming by to pick up the mail. If the pickup is at 11 a.m., drop your mail around 10 to 11. Don't do it at 10 after 11, because now that mail is going to be sitting in there for 24 hours. And we have people out there, we call them mailbox fishing. They go out and they develop these devices where they put a sticky pad into the mail slot and they drop it in and they try to come up with all the mail. And their hope is to find currency. A lot of people still mail currency, but even if they found a check, you're not out of danger, because what they do is they could what we call check washing. They could take that check of yours, place it in a chemical called acetone, and what would happen is they would the acetone would remove all the writing that you wrote on the check. So if you wrote the check to Spectrum Cable for $200, all that, in a matter of like 10-15 seconds, all that ink would come off. They can write the check out for them, to themselves or another person, and most likely they're going to do it for the same amount for the check that you wrote out. Why are they going to do that? Because more often than not, if people are not checking their bank ledgers, you're going to see that the check that you think you wrote out for Spectrum for 200 cleared for 200. So you're kind of thinking, all right, Spectrum got it, not realizing that the bad guy or bad girl cashed a check and made it out to themselves. So again, go to the post office directly and try. If you are still writing checks, there's a special pens on the market that have what they call pigmented ink. Okay, that ink is specially made, and that whole process that I just explained to you about them lifting the check, it cannot be done. So it's definitely worth the investment to buy a pen that has pigmented ink. Excuse me. These are a whole bunch of visits, a whole bunch of scams. I want to jump, for time constraints, I want to go into the phone scams, because this is what really is affecting not just the senior community, but the community as a whole. How many people out there would use one of these cards? We have a Best Buy card. We have an Apple iTunes card and Amazon. Everyone loves Amazon, right? Amazon and Green Dot. This is old school. This is pretty much how it started, but this is still around. How many people out there would use these cards to pay their utility bills? No one's hand should be up, but because we're all savvy New Yorkers and we would never fall for anything like that. But guess what? I told you earlier, we have the luxury of reading these reports. I cannot tell you how many times people pick up their phone. Now remember, you're sitting in your own house, okay? The luxury, the safety of your own house. You know, when I first started being a police officer, we had to deal with a totally different type of crime, the street corner crime, guns and knives and people being robbed at knife point and gunpoint. Now you can get robbed, you become a victim sitting in your own house. That's how crazy technology is. All you have to do is pick up the phone. I'm sure many people out there have picked up the phone. You've heard every scam out there. Social Security, utility company, immigration, IRS. The list is endless and it's ever evolving, ever evolving. So that's where being rude comes into play again. If you get a phone call from someone claiming to be the IRS, a law enforcement agency, do yourself a favor throughout this whole book, whatever scam it may be, what our advice is to hang up, okay? Do not allow yourself, or do not give them the opportunity we talked about to continue that conversation with you and hook you, because once they have you there, guess what? They're going to convince you of a story that's worthy of a Hollywood movie script, and you're going to fall for it. I know everyone here is shaking their head. No, I could never fall for that. I cannot begin to tell you how many reports we have of people losing a lot of money. Quack, what do you think the most amount of money is people lost over answering the phone?
I have seen them go upwards of $50,000.
Well, that's lowballing it. I've seen 50,000 is pretty common. We're talking about life savings.
Mhm.
We're talking about life savings. Sometimes they'll convince you that there's something wrong with your computer. Actually, no, the phone call will start that they're part of the software protection company and you're due a refund. And they'll convince you to go on your desktop and they'll install software on your computer. It's called mirroring apps. And what happens is once you let them in, they have access to all your files. And what they'll do is they'll take from your banking account and switch it over, convince you that it's an experiment. And in order to get the money back, guess what? You have to go out and get this card and call them back with the serial number. I'm going to play everyone a little video now of how this scam can go down. This is one version of it.
Go to new share. New share, yeah,
Okay.
and then click on that one, yep. Then share, there you go. And then play.
Granddad, it's me. Incident in Mexico. I'm in jail.
Jimmy, is that you?
Yeah, it's Jimmy. I need money for bail right now.
In jail?
You need to send money right now. Please don't tell anyone.
Scammers are tricky and can pretend to be anybody in any situation. They seem like the real deal. They play on your fears. The goal? To get you to act fast. Check out if they really are who they say they are, even if they sound like a loved one. Heard from an imposter? Report it at ftc.gov/imposters.
If you lost money
I'm
in
gonna
this
go
or
back
any
to the
other
other one.
Yeah,
scam,
just hit
also
new
file
share
a police
again.
report with your local precinct. A message from the NYPD Crime Prevention Division and the Federal Trade Commission.
Click on new share again. And then go back to it.
Okay.
Share.
How we doing on time, everyone?
Jocelyn? You have a few minutes.
Okay. Yeah, that video was very, very important. See how it started when the bad guy pretended to be the grandson? And guess what? They may say, well, you know, it doesn't sound like Jimmy. You know, you're right, Grandpa. It doesn't sound like me because I broke my nose. I was just in a car accident. And the people I was in, the car I hit, they're willing not to press charges if we come up with $5,000. And please don't tell mom and dad because I'm embarrassed. Now that would be the hook. I've talked to a lot of victims out there. That's how it started. And the grandparents gave up the money. They sent it over. But more dangerously, they had a visitor come to the house to pick up the money. That's how crazy these scams get and how dangerous it can be by just picking up the phone. Could you imagine someone that you don't know coming up to your house pretending to be a lawyer to pick up the money? So that happens. And guess what? The next day they get another phone call from Jimmy. And that same car accident he was in, one of the passengers was pregnant and they lost the baby. And the family's willing to settle out of court for $50,000. Grandma, you got to send $50,000 now. I know we're shaking our head, no, it'll never happen, but believe you me, it happens quite often. Okay, that's just one of a many number of scams. What I want you to do, when we go through all these scams, whether it be the IRS scam, the medical scam, the hostage scam, the law enforcement scam, that's a big one. Please understand that the New York City Police Department would never call you asking for money to bail people out. That never happens. The New York City Police Department will never call you to solicit a donation. This happens more often than not around 9/11. We're trying to play on people's sympathies around the 9/11, which is, we're approaching the 20-year anniversary. The police department does not do any of that. We never charge for any of our services, and we do not solicit donations over the phone. So please do not donate. But all our advice, for no matter what the scam is to simply be rude and hang up the phone. Because if you answer one, the phone calls are going to still come. You have to understand, these are people that work in an office much bigger than this, and it's just desk upon desk upon desk. It's called the boiler room. And it's people out there sitting at these desks, and their job is to call and see if they can get you to go out and buy one of these gift cards and send them money. And we don't want that to happen.
If you don't recognize the number that's calling, don't even bother. Don't even get to the point where you're hanging up, because if it's someone that's actually important to you, they can either leave a message or they could send you a text message. But if it's one of these scams, a lot of times they go with a computer, they'll just leave a recording on your voicemail, and then don't even bother with it. But if it's someone that actually is looking for you, they'll leave a proper voicemail for you to listen to. So I would say don't even bother, picking up. But if you do pick up and it's something that sounds suspicious, hang right up. Don't even wait.
Well, how crazy is this now? This is the other thing I want to tell you when it comes to phone scams. We all have caller ID, right? So we know who's calling us before we pick up the phone. The bad people out there have what they call spoofing technology. So what they can do is make that number seem like it's coming from the NYPD. And then the next thing you know, you pick it up. It must be important. It's the NYPD, right? And then you have a person like Kwok or myself talking to you over the phone with our voices and our knowledge, saying that, listen, your grandson Jimmy was arrested and we need you to send money. That just adds to the whole validity of the phone call. So just be aware that people can spoof that number and make it seem like it's a law enforcement agency. They can make it seem like it's the IRS. No public utility, the IRS, they're not going to call you for money. If the IRS wants to contact you, they're going to contact you the old-fashioned way, through regular mail, okay? And the NYPD, if you get a phone call like that, hang up, you can call 911 and have us vet what's going on with that phone call, okay? Immigration scam, this was pretty popular. Usually every presidential election, this is a popular scam to prey on people's immigration status. And getting back to Doreen's point, we as a police department, as a law enforcement agency, we are not concerned with your status as documented or undocumented. That does not come into play when we're here to help everybody, regardless of your immigration status. I believe it's called Mayor's Executive Order 41. So if you need help, regardless of your immigration status, call 911. We want to know about it. Lottery scam. In the back of this book that everyone is going to get a copy at some point in time are just resources, services for seniors, and you could read these at your leisure. That's all I have for now. I'll just turn it back to Aurora.
Okay, thank you, Officer Morales and Officer Kwong. That was really very helpful. So I'm Aurora Salamone with the New York City Department for the Aging. I'm the director of the Elder Justice Unit. And I just wanted to quickly go over, in the event that you are a victim of a crime, some of the services that the department can offer to help you with. So the New York City Department for the Aging could help you apply with the New York State Office of Victim Services. They can assist with out-of-pocket medical expenses due to a crime. Or for, I'll give you an example. If you were assaulted and you broke your arm and you needed to go to the hospital and your insurance would only cover X amount, the New York State Crime Victims Office would be able to assist you with the out-of-pocket that you would be laying out to get your medical expenses covered. So our office can help you apply for that. If your glasses were broken during assault and your insurance doesn't cover all of that because you have a deductible, we would be able to file a claim for you, and the Office of Victim Services would be able to assist you with that. We also help link you to the police. If you come to our office and you didn't file a police report, we could assist you with filing a police report. We could connect you with the district attorney's office, the attorney general's office, because some of these crimes are related to like scams and would go to the attorney general's office. They do investigate those kinds of crimes. We can also connect you with legal services in the community in the event that you can't pay your rent because of a crime and your landlord wants to take you to court to evict you. We would be able to connect you to a non-for-profit legal service provider. We would also, in the event that there is an arrest, work with the DA's office, help you walk through the process of what the steps would be in the event that you would have to appear in court. We could assist you. We would help you with safety planning. We could connect you for emergency assistance if you need it. In some cases, we're able to change people's locks if they had a break-in, or replace or put in a window gate. We would also connect you to case management services, Meals on Wheels, home care, and other benefits if you needed them. We would also direct you to the appropriate places if you lost documents or needed documents to be replaced. But most important, we could also provide you with supportive counseling because all of this is very traumatic and we want to help you heal. So you can call our number at the Department for the Aging, which is 212-442-3103. This is all the different services. We also contract with community programs, so you would be able to connect in the event that you're a victim of elder abuse, and that is in the handout, in the booklet that the police department, Sergeant Morales was talking about. And when they update that booklet, we can send it out to everybody who put their email address in the chat. So this wraps up our segment of the webinar, but we are willing to answer questions at this point. We'll open it up for questions. There were a number of questions in the chat, and one of the questions was, is mace legal in New York?
Aurora, if it's,
Yes.
yeah, so just to be mindful of time, let's start with that and then I'll cruise through here quickly. But Sergeant Morales, is mace legal? We can't hear you, you're muted.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question. I apologize.
Is mace legal in New York City?
Officer
Okay.
Kwok.
So pepper spray, as it's more commonly known, is legal. However, it is a very, very, very specific rule in place. You cannot buy it online. You cannot buy it from out of state. A lot of people feel like, oh, I'll just go to New Jersey and buy it. There are very specific rules that govern pepper spray. So the only places that legally typically sell it tend to be pharmacies, certain locations that sell police-related uniform and stuff. Sometimes they do carry it, but they do require more than just the usual stuff. But there is a legal requirement of certain chemical breakdown of the pepper spray, so you can have it. Our suggestion typically is pepper spray. We don't want anyone really utilizing any sort of any sort of tool really like that, because at the end of the day, what a lot of people don't realize is pepper spray does as much damage to the person you're using it on as it does to you. Because when you spray it, if you're in a small area or anything like that, it could turn around and now it's blinding you and you don't have that ability to flee from the situation. But beyond that also is, and this is a really big part of it, in the rules, in the law, they allow you to have pepper spray, but you can only use it in self-defense situations. If you use it outside of a self-defense situation, that's an added section to whatever crime that may have happened. So in other words, you have to make sure that you really are in a situation where you're concerned for your well-being. You know, if someone walks up to you and is talking to you and you just don't like them, you can't just pull it out and spray them with it. This person actually has to have a perceivable threat to you for you to use it in a self-defense sort of mechanism. But at the NYPD, we do still kind of suggest that you kind of refrain from using it because it has a tendency to escalate the situation more than it needs to.
We would recommend leave the crime fighting to us and call 911. We never ever recommend use of any of this type of this stuff. Mace, pepper spray, whatever you want to call it, leave it to us. I think a lot more can be done with a good plan. There's safety in numbers where you don't even have to think about walking around with pepper spray. That would be, that's kind of sad if you ask me. Just develop a good plan. Be aware of your situational awareness, which we talked about a little bit more. When you're walking down the street, instead of being just a typical New Yorker and just looking straight ahead, take the 5 seconds it takes to look around and see what's happening ahead of you, 5 seconds ahead of you. So if you see a group of people hanging up there that you don't like, guess what? You can cross the street. You can take an alternate route. You can go to safety in a food store or a grocery store, whatever type of store. We used to call them safe havens, but you can go in there and ask to use the phone or just wait till that perceived threat passes.
Thank you so much. So one other item for NYPD before we hop off, we're not going to address all these questions, but Sergeant Morales, Officer Kwan, a couple people talked about being afraid to leave their house, being afraid to go on the train. Any thoughts or suggestions around how to address that fear?
Well, fear is, perception is everyone's reality. If I can't go into statistics because honestly, I don't know them, but perception is everyone's reality. Like I said, I know that this is a very safe city. And again, when you develop, do things together, do things with a coordinated plan, do things the right way to protect yourself, New York City is going to be a safe city and we're going to keep you safe. The police are out there every day fighting crime. We're out there for you. If you don't feel safe, obviously you call 911 and we'll be there in a nanosecond to get you the help that you need. I think it would be very unfortunate if people, if you don't feel safe, that's one thing. But in actuality, sure, we see some stories on the news that aren't good. But for the most part, we live in a very, very safe city, and the NYPD works very, very hard to keep it that way.
So one other question for NYPD, there are many people who are asking if they could get your booklet. Do you have it electronically? If we collected emails, is that something we could share?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So what we'll ask you to do, I think the quickest thing is for you to include your email address in the chat, and we'll work to email you following this event. So please add them. And Sapira, if I could ask you to keep track of the emails, and then Sergeant Morales, Officer Kwan will need your book, and we'll get back to you. And with that, thank you so much for joining this important event. And Aurora, if somebody needs help and they want to connect with the Elderly Crime Victim Resource Center, what do they do?
They just need to either call 311 or they need to call our number directly, 212-442-3103.
212-442-3103.
3103. I'll put it in the chat.
Great, thank you. So please, if you want to talk about your fear and more support you could do, as well as any requests for presentations and so on, please reach out to the Elderly Crime Victim Resource Center. They've been doing this work a long time and work really closely with Sergeant Morales and NYPD.
If I may add one thing, as I said earlier, every precinct has a crime prevention officer, and this is a great free service that everyone can avail themselves of. What we do what we call a security surveys. A crime prevention officer can come out to your home, your apartment, your place of business, your house of worship, and we can conduct a security survey free of charge. And we look at it with a different set of eyes than most people. We look at locks, windows, alarms, tinting, all these different things that if you call us out, we can actually complete a report. And you're not binded by making any recommendations, but we'll make recommendations to better secure your house, the type of locks you could use, lighting, the full array of safety features. And the best part of this is that this whole security survey is done for free. Okay. And that's an offer from the NYPD to everyone out there. So that's another way that we can help you feel safe in your own home.
Thank you. That's amazing. How do people access that?
Well, again, you can contact your local precinct crime prevention officer, or if anyone in your audience wants to give you the information, and they can get it up to me, and I'll make sure that someone contacts them from the local precinct and to make the appointment.
So when you call down to the local precincts, usually they may not necessarily have a separate line for crime prevention. Sometimes they do, but if they don't, they can also touch base with their community affairs officers at the local precinct, and they can also connect them to their crime prevention. So some of them, when you call in, they'll give you a couple of different options, and crime prevention may not come up, but crime prevention and community affairs typically work hand in hand. And if you touch base with community affairs, they will also be able to connect you to the crime prevention officer as well.
Thank you so much. That's fantastic. I feel like everybody should call their local precinct.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you all so much. And thank you for so many people, as well as so many of our providers I see are on the line, committed to supporting the safety of older adults.